So in this video, we'll be taking up family polynomial functions homework sheet. Alright, so for the first question, they gave us the zeros of a quadratic function. They asked us to determine the equation for the family, and then equations for two members of that family. And then they asked for us to solve for the particular member of the family that passes through -1, 6. So this is pretty much grade 10 math, to be honest with you. Like in grade 10, you're given the zeros and a point and solve for the equation. So that's very reminiscent of 1C. For question 2, they ask you which of the functions does not belong to the same family. And the answer is D, because the zeros are different from the other three. For question 3, you'll see that A, C, and D are part of one family, and B and F are part of another family. It's because A, C, and D have the same zeros, and B and F have the same zeros. So it's just testing you on your understanding of what it means to be part of a family of polynomial functions. For question 4, they gave us the zeros, and they asked us to solve for the particular member that passes through 1, 8. So really, the math was identical for the three parts to question 4. You first generated the equation for the family, and then you solve for the particular member by subbing in the point. Question 5, you generate the equation for the family. You generate two possible members. So my answers can be very different from your answers, but I tried to keep it very straightforward. And then you solve for a particular member of the family that passes through the point, has a y-intercept of 10. So 5 and 6 are very much the same, except 6 is a quartic. It's a family of quartic instead of family of cubic. But the math is pretty much the same. For 7, actually 7 is very similar to 5 and 6 as well, except for the zeros. We got some rational zeros here. So your factors are a little more complicated. The x coefficients are not 1. There's a 3 and a 2. But you know what? It's pretty straightforward. If you finished, if you did a lot of practice in chapter 1, generating these factors are very, very straightforward. Okay, so question 8. So we have some irrational zeros like 4 plus or minus root 3. So the factors look a little weird. They want us to put in standard form, no problem. So I use my shortcut to expand this. If you don't use a shortcut, it's okay, but we'll still get the same answer. And then 8b, you just sub in the point and solve for the family for that particular, you solve for the member of that particular family of functions. So for 9, determine equation represented by the graph. No problem. I see the zeros and the orders of the zeros from the graph. I generate the corresponding factors, solve for k using the point. I chose the y-intercept. All right, 10. What's about 10? 10. Oh, so yeah, this one is just order of 2, so the math is a little more expanding to do. But 10 is very similar to 8. So anyways, put in standard form, solve for a particular member of the family. For question 11, they asked me for an odd function. They asked for an odd function, so there's symmetry in the zeros. Yeah, and it has to pass through the origin because it's an odd function. It's odd function as a polynomial, so we have to have it pass through the origin here. It passes through the point, so you can solve for the member. And C, they ask us what happens to reflect that across the x-axis. So just take g of x and multiply it by -1. H of x is negative g of x. And they ask us, is g of x odd? And you realize it is, because g of negative x is equal to negative g of x. So I use part C to help me out here. Because I have negative g of x, and hey, it's the same as g of negative x, which means g of x is odd. And that's just refreshing your memory from what you did in chapter 1 with even and odd functions.